Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today I would like to have a fun discussion about the last Nintendo Switch games and how I think some of these may be even bigger than you think. Now, what exactly am I getting at here? Well, that's what we're getting further into today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And now, here is a brief message about today's sponsor. Snaxy is the ultimate Android gaming mobile app where you can earn incredible rewards from over 100,000 options while playing your favorite mobile games. And it also helps publishers acquire new users. Every gaming session with Snaxy is rewarding, with over 100,000 items like gift cards, game skins, and in-game coins. Integrate Snaxy into your routine for non-stop gaming, personalized recommendations, generous rewards, and frequent content updates. For more on the Snaxy app, check out the link in the description below. So we know Nintendo has already confirmed to us that they will be giving us more details on the successor to the Nintendo Switch, what we've been calling the Nintendo Switch 2 for now, by the end of the fiscal year, which would be ending March of 2025. And of course, there's all the conversations and speculations that we may be getting a reveal even sooner, perhaps even this month of September, we shall see. But the main point here is that we are absolutely in the transition. Nintendo themselves has already told us that they are in this transition. This current fiscal year is a transitional year for them. The next generation is about to start. And so with that, we are approaching the end of support for the Nintendo Switch 1. And so it gets me wondering about what games are left. Now, something I'd like to establish early on with this discussion, as I've talked about in the past, is that I do not anticipate in any way, shape, or form that once the Switch 2 is announced fully, or even when it comes out, that it will spell the end for Nintendo Switch 1 fully. No, in fact, what I expect is for Switch 1 to continue to sell for a few more years, even after Switch 2 comes out. And not just in terms of units, but there will still be software coming out for Switch 1. And I think probably the best example we can look at is how Nintendo handled the transition from 3DS over to Switch. When talking about how things went down in 2016, the year before Switch came out in 2017, a lot of people like to look towards the situation regarding Wii U and think, okay, well, that console was totally dead, it didn't really matter, they just picked up with the Switch. But the way I see it, the Switch, given that it is indeed a hybrid console, many people play it portably, others play it docked, but we have heard that more users play in portable mode than docked mode. And so all I'm really getting at here is that the Switch being a hybrid is a proper follow-up to both the Nintendo 3DS and the Wii U, and there is data that you can use to argue that it's more so a successor to the 3DS than the Wii U, but I think it's just fair to say that it's a successor to both. And so with that in mind, looking at the 3DS, which was still a relatively healthy system at the time, Nintendo announced the Switch, but still pushed the 3DS with new games coming out throughout the holidays, into 2017, into 2018, and even into the beginning of 2019. Now, a great deal of these games were simpler projects or remakes and remasters. There weren't as many brand new original titles coming out in these last few years. But the 3DS still had support from Nintendo, published Nintendo titles coming out for a couple years into the Switch's life cycle. And I imagine things will work very similarly this time around. However, there is a big key difference here. We expect the Switch 2 to essentially have a very similar form factor to the Switch, to be a sequel and likely have backwards compatibility. So unlike with the 3DS, when Nintendo would release games, say for example like Metroid Samus Returns, where you can't play it on the Switch because it's only made for 3DS, when Nintendo releases Metroid Prime 4 Beyond next year for Nintendo Switch, a big game that's coming out in 2025 for just Switch 1, at least what's been officially been announced, through backwards compatibility, you'd still be able to play it on your Nintendo Switch 2. And so with that point, maybe some of you already see where I'm getting at here. Nintendo may not just be bringing out some smaller projects to the Nintendo Switch in these last couple years, but rather some pretty big projects, but thanks to backwards compatibility, they'll still be relevant on Switch 2. And I'm going to go a step further. I just mentioned Metroid Prime 4. If you've been following this channel for a while, you'll probably already know that I very much believe, with nearly 100% certainty, of course it's just my belief, I could still be wrong, but I definitely think that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a cross-generation title. There will be an improved, enhanced version for Nintendo Switch 2. How exactly they go about it, I'm unsure, but I do believe in this happening. I think it makes way too much sense. Yes, Switch has a larger install base, but what we've noticed is that while games may sell a lot from the beginning, they don't tend to have the same legs as games did early on in the generation. And so in the case of Prime 4, yes, come out for Switch so for users can still play it on the Switch 1, but have a version for Switch 2 so you can market this big ambitious game alongside the console. People will have it in mind when they get the console, more will pick up and try the game, and it'll be a part of that initial launch, a console that will grant new legs to a lot of new software, perhaps even like Prime 4, giving it that evergreen status so Metroid Prime can reach an even larger audience. And I think this logic is going to apply for more than just Metroid Prime 4. We've recently heard from someone who we believe to be the return of Midori that we may be seeing Xenoblade Chronicles X come out for both Switch and Switch 2 next year. Now I understand a lot of people don't want to hear about Midori anymore, given their very odd departure and some very arguable unethical things. And I definitely don't condone that activity, but according to their new account, they apologize for some of those things, challenge the validity of others, and regardless, it is information that is proven to be accurate. Of course, still take it with a grain of salt because you never know for sure, but apparently, Xenoblade Chronicles X is finally coming to Nintendo Switch, but there will also be a version for Nintendo Switch 2. And the way it's been suggested, it seems like it'll be enhanced for Nintendo Switch 2. And so what we could be looking at here is that there may be a variety of games that will enjoy enhanced backwards compatibility. They will be Switch 1 games, they will be big releases for Switch 1 users, but there will also be enhanced versions for Nintendo Switch 2 users. And so if this is actually the case, then I expect that there are going to be some significant games still coming out for Switch 1 for a couple years that people will still be able to enjoy improved versions on Switch 2. It'll probably give Nintendo a little bit more wiggle room in terms of having to do that hard transition over to Switch 2. There will be more cross-generation titles. Having something like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Xenoblade Chronicles X coming out next year for Switch 1 owners does sound pretty good, at least to me, because both of those games come from two of my favorite series. But there are other games. We already know about Pokemon Legends ZA that's coming out next year as well. That's coming out for Switch 1, but there's been a lot of speculation that that may be another game that may enjoy some form of a cross-gen enhancement or improved backwards compatibility. There could be something to that. But is there anything that we don't know about yet that could be coming to Switch 1 that will be pretty impressive? I would say, looking at the kind of games we have coming out for this holiday, I'm already somewhat surprised. Mario and Luigi Brothership, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Super Mario Party Jamboree, these are some big deal kinds of games. And it also has me wondering if Nintendo had a different plan in mind. Because we did hear about the supposed internal delay of Switch 2 from this point in the year to sometime next year, early next year, maybe like a half-year delay. And if that's the case, some games that they would have had planned to come out next year versus the games they would have had planned to come out this year might have been swapped around. Mario Party Jamboree might have been saved for sometime next year. Mario and Luigi Brothership might have been another one of those games that could have enjoyed some form of enhanced backwards compatibility. Maybe we should think about it in terms of games that might seem pretty impressive on Switch but would also look amazing on Switch 2. There has been a game that's been rumored for some time to come, but we've yet to see. And that's some form of a new F-Zero game that might even be a remaster of F-Zero GX. Hasn't been shown yet, but it's been rumored for some time. Could it be that Nintendo has been holding back on this game until the time of Switch 2? Maybe we would have seen it this year if Switch 2 wasn't supposedly delayed. And so maybe there is some sort of impressive looking F-Zero game that's coming to Switch, but will also enjoy that enhanced backwards compatibility for Switch 2. Kind of makes sense to me. But another game that's been rumored for some time is this Fire Emblem remake. Still hasn't been announced yet, and at this point, seems like if it's coming out, it's going to come out after Switch 2 comes out. Now, I will say that there's some flexibility here because we don't know what's coming out in February or March yet, and maybe Nintendo soon will announce that this Fire Emblem remake will come out maybe February or March, perhaps just before the launch of the Switch 2. But given how things have been going as of late, and it doesn't look like there's going to be a proper direct to tell us more about Switch 1 things in the early parts of next year, I'm definitely leaning in this direction of, well, I think this Fire Emblem remake, if true, which I do believe it is given the sources, probably is coming out during the Switch 2 era, and maybe another one of these games that enjoys that enhancement. Other games that come to mind, but aren't necessarily big, would be like, for example, the Mario Sports titles. Those have some pretty good sales potential, but they may fit as both Switch 1 and enhanced Switch 2 titles. There is this other game that I've been thinking about, but I'm not sure what it is exactly because it is just rumored, and that is a spin-off of the Pikmin series. Supposedly it will be announced sometime in the next fiscal year. What might it be? Depending on the direction, might be kind of a big deal, or might be kind of a small thing, but it could be something that we may see late into the Switch cycle. They could also have an enhancement, possibly. Now I do think Nintendo will have to draw the line somewhere. You look at how Sony transitioned over from the PS4 to the PS5, and the PS5 has had some solid overall hardware sales, but there are many with the sentiment that perhaps they could have pushed things a bit further had they had more exclusives. There is a lot of criticism that there's not enough PS5 exclusives right now, and a lot of that may have to do with the fact that Sony chose to have a lot more cross-gen games. So Nintendo could be entering a scenario where they may suffer a similar issue where we may not have enough Switch 2 exclusives that appropriately push the hardware. My perspective on this is that by Nintendo taking longer to begin the generation with it as Switch 2, they've had the opportunity to see these transitions for both Sony and Microsoft where there are a lot of these cross-gen titles, or enhanced backwards compatibility. And while we are indeed thinking there will be a lot of these, there's gotta be some that won't be, and perhaps Nintendo will be doing things a bit differently here. I sort of expect that there will be some just straight up Switch 2 exclusive games, more so than how Sony handled it. I expect that the next new Mario Kart will be only for Switch 2. I expect that the next new 3D Mario will also only be for Switch 2. Perhaps the games that Nintendo's pretty confident are 10 plus million sellers, those are the kind of games that for sure will be Switch 2 exclusives no matter what. But the other games where there is some level of doubt or are clearly targeting a bit of a smaller audience, on a case-by-case basis they may decide if it's a better fit as a cross-gen or just a Switch 2 exclusive. So looking at things like Metroid Prime 4 makes sense as a cross-gen title. Looking at something like maybe a Xenoblade Chronicles X, that could potentially come to both. But as the years do draw on, these kinds of games will wane, so they have an even smoother transition than Sony. That makes sense to me, but it also gives me some excitement because I think it does suggest that there will be other Switch games that will have a great deal of focus, and Nintendo will simply think, okay, this is an impressive Switch game, but we can still offer an enhanced version for Switch 2, and they're not just going to hold it back for Switch 2. There's going to be a blend here, and it's not just going to be a cold turkey switchover. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.